Today, I'm going to show you how to assemble a BMX Freestyle bike. The tools you will need to assemble the bike include an adjustable wrench or 15mm wrench, a 5mm Allen wrench, a 6mm Allen wrench, pliers, wire cutters or scissors, a Phillips head and slotted screwdriver, a box cutter or knife, and an air pump. Let's start by opening the box using your screwdriver. Be careful of the staples in the box. You can just remove the staples with your pliers and throw them away. Remove the bike from the box. Take out the parts box and set aside. Open the parts box and remove the contents. In the parts box is the owner's manual. Please read the owner's manual before you ride your bike. Flatten the bike box to build on so you don't damage your floor. Cut any zip ties that are holding the parts together and remove all packing materials that are wrapped around the parts. To attach the handlebars, unscrew the stem bolts and set aside along with the top cap of the stem. Put the handlebars in the stem, making sure it is centered. When you put the handlebars on, make sure the cable is routed around the front of your stem. Replace the top cap and hand thread the bolts back into the stem. Next, using your 6mm Allen wrench, tighten the bolts evenly in an X pattern, making sure you keep the stem cap even as you tighten the bolts. It is suggested that you line up the handlebars with the angle of the forks. Lastly, torque the bolts to make sure they are tight. Now it's time to install the seat post. Note the minimum insertion line on the seat post. Insert the seat post into the seat tube. Make sure the minimum insertion mark is not visible above the seat clamp. Align the seat so the nose runs parallel with the frame and tighten the bolt on the seat clamp with your 5mm Allen wrench. To install the front wheel, flip the bicycle over and remove the fork protector packaging if you haven't already. Unthread the axle nuts towards the end of the axle and also move the tab safety washers towards the end of the axle. Make sure the tire pattern of your front tire is in the same direction as the rear tire. Install the front wheel into the fork dropouts. Slide the safety washers onto the axle and put them into place by pressing the tab on the washers into the tab hole on the dropout. Now hand tighten the axle nuts and then finish tightening them with either a 15mm wrench or an adjustable wrench, making sure the wheel is centered in the fork. To install the pedals, look for an L and R on your pedals and your crank arm to determine which one is for the left and right side. Screw the pedals in the direction of the front wheel. Hand tighten your pedals into the corresponding crank arm. Then use either a 15mm pedal wrench or an adjustable wrench to finish tightening the pedals securely. Now it's time to flip the bike back over and do some pre-ride fine-tuning. Let's start with the handlebars. Looking straight down on your stem to make sure it is lined up with your front tire. With the side bolts on the stem loosened, you can gently tap the tire with your foot to line the tire up with your stem. Once they are lined up, tighten the bolts on the side of your stem with your 6mm Allen wrench. Now let's pump the tires up. You can find the recommended PSI to inflate the tires on the side of your tire. Never go over this recommended pressure because it can damage the tire. You can finish it off by putting the reflectors on with your Phillips head screwdriver. You can test your assembly with a couple of tests. Let's start with a push test by applying pressure in both a downward and upward direction on the handlebars. And a twist test by holding the bike and twisting both the handlebars and the stem laterally. Make sure that the seat is secure by twisting laterally. Check the brakes. Make sure that they don't pull too far back. There should be a gap between a fully compressed brake and the grip. Ensure that the brakes are working. Let's do a bounce test to make sure nothing is loose or rattling. Lastly, go around your bike and torque all of the bolts to the manufacturer's specifications you'll find in the manual to make sure everything is tightened properly. The pressure needed to properly torque the bolts should leave a mark on your hands. Now it's time to enjoy the bike you just put together yourself.